Hi guys, this is alankushmakov. We are welcoming you to our Modern Day Brokerage Podcast, MDB. And I got two special guests today in our podcast studio. I have Noor Sharif as well as Kenneth Cano. So both of these gentlemen I know for quite some time, and they're doing some amazing things in a short-term rental world. And they will be sharing everything that they have done in the last year and a half to 2 years in building their short-term rental portfolios. Both of them combined, I think, generated $700,000 in income in the last 12 months. In addition to it, they're both real estate agents, top producing agents. Ken is actually one of the agents with our brokerage, Best Homes Real Estate. But the whole thing, guys, today is all about really sharing more about yourself, backstories, your business ventures, and really helping the audience to kind of figure out what they want to do next, or maybe possibly get into the short-term rental game as well. So let's start with Noor.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Yeah.
What's up, man?
First of all, thanks for having us here, man. It's definitely an honor to be here and to be part of your podcast, so I appreciate that. But yeah, what do you want to know?
Well, let's start with the childhood journey, man, like your backstory. How did it all started with you? I think you grew up in Egypt.
Egypt. Yeah.
Correct.
Cairo, Egypt.
All right.
Yeah.
Start with that.
Okay, so yeah, just like you said it, I grew up in Egypt, Cairo. I lived there until I was 16. That's kind of when my, journey moving to the States started. I came to the US, to California, roughly when I was, approaching 17. Didn't really plan on moving there. It was kind of like parent situation. They fought for me. It kind of ended up being in California, Fresno, out of all places. And then finished my high school there. Didn't speak English, didn't really prepare for the move. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was a bit of a rough transition, to be honest. And then finished high school, joined the Air Force right after, months later after graduation. And then that started that journey, and I ended up doing 8 years in the Air Force. Got stationed in a handful of places. Luckily, traveled around quite a bit, met some amazing people. Honestly, those 8 years felt like a lifetime, but it was truly an amazing journey. And that was kind of throughout my time in the military is when my passion, my journey with real estate, all that stuff kind of started, luckily. And it really all started by just me buying a house. That's kind of how it always, I think, starts for a lot of people. I don't want to take my story all over the place, but I started buying my first house as a young airman stationed here actually in Arizona at Luke. Bought a house. It was a little bit higher than what I could/should afford. Fast forward, bought my first house, kind of settled into it. Actually, Kenneth was my realtor. Back then Kenneth was in before me, so he was a little bit experienced, like he was ahead of me in the military, and at that point he was already started doing real estate and stuff. We got connected. This is how me and Kenneth met, through a friend. They connected us. He helped me find the house. I bought it, lived in it. After that, I moved on and then put a tenant in my home. It was kind of forced. I didn't plan any of this. I was young. I was 21 years old. I didn't know what to do. I just was
So
left.
you bought your first house when you were 21 years old?
I was. And a year later, I was told I'm PCSing, I'm leaving, moving somewhere else. And I was like, well, I can't sell my house necessarily. So I was like, I just guess I have to rent it.
Yeah.
So there was no strategy. I didn't really know a whole lot. I just bought a house and I just didn't want to sell it to not lose money. So I kept it, rented it out.
Yeah.
And then that kind of started that, in a sense, fire in me. And I was like, ended up renting it out, started learning about the potential of owning real estate, the benefits, all these great things, passive income, all that kind of started like opening up for me. And from there, a couple of years later, reached back to Ken. I was gone at this point. I was like, Ken, I want to buy another house if I could. And then going after that, bought another house and then ended up buying a few houses after that over the 4 years after. And that was long term. All that, I didn't know much about short-term rental or Airbnbs or none of that was really all that popular. So got into that long-term rental, and then I ended up separating from acquiring as many properties as I could, which I had at that time 4 by the time I separated from military, which was last November. It's when my time in the Air Force was over. And then I transitioned out, moved back to Phoenix, Arizona. And then that's when my real estate journey kind of started, the realtor and as a short-term rental investor and all that. Sorry, I know I was all over the place.
Oh, no. Listen, I appreciate that. Just quick question for you. I mean, what motivated you to go from the long-term rentals into the short-term rentals? I know there are a lot of investors out there that specifically focus on long-term rentals, right? And they're not doing or they're not familiar with the short-term side of the business. What really kind of got you going and start thinking about, maybe there's actually more in terms of the potential in the short term?
I will say, honestly, a potential. I've had the long-term rentals. They were doing great. They were stabilized. I had great property managers taking care of my properties and stuff. To be honest, I started seeing the growth of short-term rental. And then, of course, looking around and seeing friends and people I know, like Kenneth and like others, doing the short-term rental, getting into it, kind of following that path. It just made me kind of, in a sense, it was always in the back of my head, but wasn't necessarily my field. And it wasn't also feasible for me being still active duty in the military and being constantly moving and traveling and deploying. I wasn't really in a good position to start then.
Yeah.
And then when I did get out and had some sort of stability in the location where I was actually knew that I wasn't going to be moving anytime soon, that's when I kind of made that transition. That's kind of like what happened. But my actual desire to get into it was, again, the potential. Long-term rentals are great. They're consistent. They're stable if you run them properly. But the income potential between long-term and short-term is significant. If, again, assuming they're both doing well, there's higher income potential with short-term rental, but also higher risk, sometimes higher entry costs and expenses. So there's ups and downs to both. I personally still hang on to my long-term properties. When I came back, I had 3 houses here in Phoenix. They were all long-term rentals. I ended up doing 2 of them when the leases were over. I ended up converting them to short-term, like furnished them, put them on short-term rentals. And then I still have one on long-term, and I have a few other properties in a few other states. But just to talk more so about this area, that's what I ended up doing with my house that I have here. That's kind of how I started getting into this. And it was I wanted to keep a balance between the long and short-term rentals because I just wanted to have some diversity in the aspect of management of the demand. Short-term rentals, unless you have a property manager, which me being new, I didn't have that. I was managing, doing everything myself. That's kind of the reason why.
So how many short-term rentals do you have right now?
5.
5. Okay.
5 short and 5 long.
So 5 short and 5 long. So altogether you have 10.
Correct.
Awesome. Very good. And how much income were you able to generate in the last 12 months from these 5 short-term rentals?
Just over 200,000. Just over 200, just under a year.
And then what about from the long-term rentals?
The long-term, collectively, those properties, it's 2 single-family homes and a triplex in Kansas City. They collectively will be grossing just under 100,000, somewhere between 80 to 100,000.
Combined, we're talking about close to like 300,000.
Correct. Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. That's awesome. That's great. How about you, Ken? Your backstory, man.
Yeah, my story's a little different. I got into real estate just kind of by accident, like you did too. So, I was born in California, Riverside. Moved all around California. Parents separated. Moved to Mexico for a couple of years. Came back to California. Fast forward to high school, I was living in El Paso, Texas, and from there, graduated high school, and then I used to carry a book. It was like Investing for Dummies that I had from the library, and it was, stocks and real estate, just general stuff, right? So I kind of knew that in the future I wanted to get into, stocks, real estate. Obviously, I didn't have any money, so then my mom was like, hey, you either go to school or you move out. So I was like, I'm not going to school. I hate it. I'm moving out. Naturally, the only option was the military, right? So just like Noor, I joined the Air Force. Fast forward a year or two, I ended up getting married to my high school sweetheart during the military. And once I ended up getting married, kind of my life just kind of went upside down. Having savings to not having any savings, to being in debt, $20,000, $30,000, just credit card debt. As an airman, $600 every week, every 2 weeks, whatever. Not enough money, right? I was living with her, renting a 4-bedroom house. I had 2 dogs. I had like 3 cars. As an airman, right?
Yeah, 3 cars.
I had 3 cars, 2 dogs. I had an Xbox. I would game every day. And next thing I know, I woke up and I was like, what am I doing? I was just sad, depressed, upside down on everything.
Was she working? Like, was she doing anything?
She was not working. On and off here, I would force her, hey, go get a job here. But,
so you were like, what, 20, 21 years old?
I was 19.
19, you got married 19?
19, yeah.
Wow.
So by this time, I'm 20. I'm in the military. I was like, I don't like the military. I hate it here. I got to figure this out, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
by 20, year later, we got divorced. She left back to El Paso, and I was just like, I literally just woke up one day like, what am I doing? That's where it all started for me.
Yeah.
I went on YouTube and came across, Grant Cardone. It kind of just all goes back to Grant Cardone. I still wear this bracelet that I bought from him. Is Champions Dominate, Don't Be a Little Bitch, which I bought in 2018. I haven't taken it off since then. So I came across his YouTube videos and, I'm in real estate, multifamily. But the problem is not this, is you don't make enough money. The problem is not that you're in debt. The problem is not that gas is $3 a gallon. Whatever, it's like you don't make enough money. I got into real estate because I just wanted to increase my income. I need to get into sales. Not necessarily the investing side. This was around 2016 now. I started going to real estate school, get my real estate license. And come 2017, I had my life. I was pretty much from that day on. It was, I guess you could say, the rest is history, right? So I got into sales, increased my income, finished my career in the military around that time. When I started selling, that's when I met him. I met his buddy Alex. I started selling to a lot of people on base. And then when you bought your first house, I watched everything that he was doing. He was buying houses every year, and I was the opposite. I was just trying to increase my income, get out of debt, and not buy a house. Grant Cardone, I don't know how well you know him back then. He was like, don't buy a house. He was always
buy your first investment first.
Save money, increase your income, and then go buy a multifamily.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in that, but I kind of should have just started buying houses, because at that point I didn't know with my W-2 in the military I could have easily qualified for the VA, but I didn't. I just started selling, got out of the military, and I had to wait 2 more years after that to do my taxes, report enough income in real estate to buy my first house. So I saw him buying, I was like, damn, I should have bought. I wish I could be buying, but that's forward. Bought my first house. That was when I was working here with you.
Yeah.
Already selling real estate. Bought my first flip. It was actually a flip. Also, I got into short-term rental by accident, not necessarily planned, right? I bought my first flip with Alan, finished it all, and at that point, I was like, this is my chance to keep it, right?
Well, it was your chance to, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think with that flip, there was just not enough meat on the bone, right? I mean, from the income standpoint.
I finished the whole remodel, and then I did a cash out refinance 6 months later, and I was able to get all my money back. And after everything, I mean, it made sense either to keep it or I could have sold it, made maybe 40,000. Yeah, I guess there's not enough profit by selling it.
Yeah.
There was I mean, for me, 40,000 like net was was still a decent amount of money. But yes, you're right. So I could have rented it, kept it forever, and just make way more than 40,000. So I kind of went that route.
How did you decide, like, on the Airbnb piece? Like, I know, like, that time, like, I was not really about, like, Airbnbs, and you were, like, I don't think you knew that much about Airbnbs
I didn't know
at all,
anything
right?
about it. So we've all heard of it.
Yeah, we heard about it, but we never really done it. Like, I have rentals. You, like, Noor had rentals, long-term rentals. Like, we didn't have, like, short-term rentals, like, 2 years ago. None of us had short-term rentals, right? So what kind of triggered you to say, you know what, I'm going to go the short-term rental route?
I believe that was you. I think you brought it up. You brought up Airbnb because I was bringing up, keeping it as a long-term. Somehow Airbnb got brought up. I looked into it and I said, why not try the short-term rental? Because, like Noor was saying, there's potential to make way more money. There's also higher risk, but at that point, I was either going to throw it on Airbnb. Worst case, that doesn't work, keep it as a long-term rental. And if that didn't work, I would just sell it and make my 40,000 move on, right?
Yeah.
So I went that route through our Airbnb within a week. This happened during COVID, 2020, 2021. So people were like revenge traveling. I guess this is what they call it now, right? I put it pretty high, 220, 230 a night. 2 years ago, and it just started getting booked left and right. And I mean, from there it was, I saw how much it made. I think the first month it made about 5,000 gross on Airbnb. So after that, I was just like, we need more.
So let's talk about that, right? Because I think your second one, correct me if I'm wrong, was not the one that you actually purchased, right?
No.
So it was a rental arbitrage.
Right. So that quickly led into me learning, diving deep into Airbnb, short-term rentals, and learning about rental arbitrage. Again,
so what is, like, for a novice, someone who's not familiar with rental arbitrage, the term, and what is it?
So rental arbitrage, in other terms, you could call it subletting, subleasing.
Okay.
Which people think it's illegal, but it's not if you do it correctly, right? You need to have all the right terms and agreements in the contract. But you find a property that's not yours, you go to the landlord, and you rent it from them with permission to then sublet it either on Airbnb or however you may like. So that's pretty much what rental arbitrage is. Find a house, you rent it from the owner, and then you rent it elsewhere.
With their permission and with clarifying that.
So they know the fact that you're going to be, like, marketing on Airbnb and Vrbo and all other sites, right?
That has to be clarified. Yeah.
Okay, so you signed the agreement. Is it a regular rental agreement or it's like a corporate agreement? What kind of agreement are you guys signing?
So you could go both ways. The safest route is to do a corporate lease, they call it, which is a rental agreement under your LLC. That time I did have my LLC because of real estate, but you could put it under your name personally. But yes, so we did a corporate lease. Essentially, it's the same as a residential lease, just under your business and personal name.
Yeah.
And honestly, even a rental agreement, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you just put your own terms that you are in agreement with the tenant, and just to make sure you protect yourself, so that way that landlord doesn't come later on and be like, hey, why do you have people in my house? I didn't allow that, or whatever the case may be.
So disclosing.
Correct.
Disclosure,
Correct.
Absolutely. So how were you able to come across this particular rental arbitrage opportunity? Like, where do you find them? Are there, like, a bunch of them out there right now that are waiting for you to contact them? I don't know.
It's definitely harder now because everyone knows about it now. It's way more popular. But when I started getting into it, I just went on the MLS. I'm a real estate agent. I had access to MLS, which you could do Zillow. It's the same thing. And I started finding houses that met the criteria that I wanted, price range, bedrooms, all that. And I just started emailing the agents, the property managers, or the owners directly, just asking them, hey, I do corporate housing. Do you mind if I rent out your house? And I will be marketing it online to other traveling professionals.
So you're emailing.
I was emailing.
That's it.
That's it.
So you're not calling, or you're not texting,
email.
door knocking, none of that stuff. You're just emailing. Mm-hmm. And how many emails would you, like, send on a weekly basis?
So after that first house, I ended up picking the one in Gilbert. Pretty much within a month or two after the first one.
Same method?
Yeah,
emailing?
just email. I mean, I probably sent 10 emails at that time. It wasn't that much, but
Okay.
luckily I came across a property manager and the owner. She had multiple houses, and she's like, "Yeah, do whatever you want. I don't care as long as my rent is paid."
Yeah.
And so in that case, I also got lucky because it was fully furnished.
So the first one that you got was not
Right, the first one was
the rental arbitrage.
No, the first rental arbitrage was fully furnished.
Fully furnished as well.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got lucky that this lady had a house for rent, fully furnished, and she allowed me to take over that lease.
So, and both of you, I mean, Noor, you can chime in as well. Like, what is then your criteria? What are you guys looking for in a property that you want to use as an Airbnb or VRBO? And let's say, for example, it's for someone who, again, cannot afford or not in position to purchase one, especially right now with the interest rates, you know, where they at. But let's say, for example, rental arbitrage is there and it's available. Like, what is your criteria? What are you guys looking for in a house?
I can tell you this. So now that the market is way more saturated than, when things started, or even a couple years ago.
So when you say way more saturated, like give me some numbers. I mean, what are we talking about?
I couldn't tell you specific numbers on like how many Airbnbs we have in the valley, but I just know that Phoenix has a very
It's a lot. During COVID, I think everything spiked. The popularity just.
So like double, triple the
Probably
number of
more than
Airbnbs?
that.
Really? Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to give you numbers. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I have come across a few statistics saying that Scottsdale has, and on the top 5 or 10 cities of Airbnb count, like in the nation. So I know it wasn't always like that. So there's been just a massive spike in the Phoenix area. And just like you mentioned earlier, the fact, well, Kenneth was talking about that, the fact that Phoenix was one of those destinations that people were escaping to. And then the traffic, was just heavy traffic to Phoenix to just travel and stay here just because there weren't many options. And I think people were desperate, right? They didn't know how long this was going to last for. And then investors saw as an opportunity that this is, a future potential destination. So people just ended up buying, getting invested heavily into the Airbnb scene. And obviously that's kind of starting to take a toll on, on the market overall with the decreased overall numbers because, there's just more listings and there's not enough business for everybody.
So there's a lot more competition.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But to answer
All right.
your first question about what we look for, I think it really comes down to the location of where that place is, whether it's a condo, a single family home, a large one, a small one, and the price point. Because really Airbnb, at the end of the day, we do what we do to have some sort of, profitable margin, right? So in the right location, at the right price, if it can be worked and the numbers check, me personally, I'll take it. I'll take anything that kind of like meets my criteria, whether it's a 1-bedroom condo or a 5-bedroom house. If it's in a good location and I run my numbers and data and I see that it will run profit, and the comps in the area support what I potentially can pay for or what the landlord or property manager ask for it, then it's a go for me.
What is your definition of a good location? Like, how do you actually run the comps on Airbnbs?
So a good location is a location that is proven to be attractive to visitors or to guests, right? Whether it's near a stadium like Westgate or whether it's near a popular destination for people or near like anything. So, just looking at the data, you just have to learn the market and learn what you're getting yourself into. And there are honestly at this point dozens of softwares that you can use to analyze the data. AirDNA, as everybody knows, is one of them where it can tell you like
What's the name of it?
AirDNA.
AirDNA?
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the softwares that are publicly known and used. And
Is it free or you got to pay for it?
It's free to a certain extent, and then
Okay.
if you want, just
So basically, you go in that site and just kind of,
Right.
put in your address, and then it will just show you your competition.
Yeah,
And how much they charge per night.
Yeah,
Like running comps.
occupancy.
Like an MLS,
occupancy average.
Yeah.
the main number it gives you is revenue. Like it'll take all the houses in a certain radius, and hey, they're averaging 80,000 a year, 60,000 a year at 75%. And then from there, from my experience, it's very under. At least in Phoenix, it's very under. They underreport. Like it's very conservative. At least from my experience.
Okay.
The way we run our Airbnbs, whatever number it says, I know for sure we'll make
More than that.
Way more than that. Yeah.
Interesting.
But then again,
Okay.
that's also it kind of like says that because he manages his properties well and he's on top of everything. Not everybody can say the same. I know for a fact there are other people that wouldn't probably be able to get those numbers that AirDNA recommends. So you got to keep that in mind. It really comes down to how you keep your property, how you manage your Airbnbs, and how you take care of it. The management, the cleaning, the logistics of running the Airbnb, this can make or break your entire Airbnb experience and revenue, how well you manage the property.
Okay. All right. So going back to, I mean, we talked about the location piece of it, right? But let's say, for example, doing the actual price analysis, right? Let's say, for instance, you have a house that is on the market for rent for, let's say, $3,500, $4,000. How much do you guys have to make in order for you to make financial sense?
So I could answer that. So everyone's different, right? For me, it might be as long as I net 1,000 a month, I'm okay. Everyone's risk tolerance is different. For Noor, it might be I want to make at least 2,000 a month. So you have to have a number that you're happy with. It could be 500, it could be 1,000, and then you just kind of reverse engineer, right? Run the numbers backwards. Once you find a certain house, you know how much they're asking for rent. They're asking 4,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
And then you take the Airbnbs that are in the surrounding area. They are similar, same bedroom, same amenities, same stuff, right? And you start comparing how much they're making per night, and you start adding up all the numbers per month over 30 days. When you're new, you're gonna be like, oh, what's my electricity? What's my water bill? What's my internet? So
Yeah, and you pay for all of that.
yeah, obviously we know all those numbers.
Yeah.
We know on average internet's $100. We know we're paying anywhere from 200 to 300 per electricity, depending on the size of the house.
Yeah.
So we already have all those numbers, so we could add all that up and then just kind of subtract the difference and see how much is gonna net worst case and best case.
Yeah.
Because we have seasons here too. We have low seasons like right now, and
Yeah.
then we have high season, which most of our profits made during the high season.
Got it.
I guess my requirement, at least here in Phoenix, is this is probably not gonna work across every state, but at least here it's minimum. I try to get a 4-bedroom with a pool.
So 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bath,
Yeah, 2.5 bath, a bathroom
with the pool.
With the pool.
Why is the pool so important?
It's just too hot. It gets too hot, and almost every short-term rental is going to have a pool, And if you look at your market and you see that every Airbnb or successful Airbnb has a hot tub or a pool or a pool table, you wanna copy that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the one without it.
Competitive edge, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Plus, when it gets to the point where it's the times we're in are a great example to that. So competition, gets crazy. Now there's dozens of listings. Guess what? Everybody's lowering their prices because there's too many Airbnbs and people are trying to stand out. So now, let's say I have a 3-bedroom house without a pool that, let's say I was on average renting for $200, right? Ken had a 4-bedroom house, that had a pool that he was also renting for roughly like maybe $250 because it's a little bit nicer. Now we're trying to bring down the prices. Let's say we both went to like $120, $130 a night because it's happened, right? In our low season and sometimes in the gaps, sometimes we lower the prices pretty drastically to just make sure we get bookings, to make sure we stay as close to 100% as possible. Now Alan comes in, he's trying to book a place. Now we find Kenneth's place that's 4-bedroom with a pool listed for $150, and you see mine that's listed for 3 bedrooms without a pool for like $130, $140. Which one are you gonna book when there's like $10, $15 a night difference? You're gonna book a bigger home for a pool, even if you don't use the extra room or the pool. You're just gonna get it because it just makes
better value.
That's right.
That's just something to keep in mind. And these are the kind of things that we've seen or we started to learn after like analyzing like hundreds of Airbnbs, after like working with enough numbers and data and properties.
Yeah. So you started your Airbnb short-term rental journey about 2 years ago. Right, Ken? And since then you added 12, 13?
12, 13. I gain some, I lose some,
Okay, how many of them you own and how many of them you do the rental arbitrage?
So I only own 2 properties.
Two properties and the rest of them are rental arbitrage.
Correct. Arbitrage or helping people manage their own Airbnb.
Or you do like management, property management type of a thing. Okay, got it.
So in total, I have 12, and then revenue there, luckily I can see all the numbers. In revenue, they're bringing in about 425 this last 365 days.
So around $425,000
in revenue.
In revenue.
Those 12 houses, right?
Got it. Okay. So 425, and then you said
just over 200,000, just around
a little bit over $200,000. Okay, so you can make pretty good living doing that. Absolutely. So you're signing these agreements. Are there like a 1-year agreements, 2-year agreements, 3-year agreements? I mean, what are your terms?
Yeah, so they're all different. It all depends on the landlord and what they're willing to do. My goal is to get at least, I try to get a 2-year. Most of the time it's not going to be possible, so 15 month, 18 month. But the longer the better, just because, you are investing into it, right? You want to have a return on your time and investment. So
it's better ROI overall, but it's all negotiable, whether it's, a year or 2. Like Ken said, we prefer the longer ones, but
we just had one that it was just a year, and we couldn't get longer. They just wouldn't budge. We did a year, and we still netted some money.
Very profitable. Yeah, so it's a case-by-case scenario.
Case by case.
Yeah,
right.
Minimum 12 months.
12 months.
Yeah.
So like out of those 10 that you have right now as rental arbitrage, how many of them actually came furnished? And how many of them were like non-furnished at all, and you had to actually furnish them?
Surprisingly, so the two houses that I bought and kept for myself, I had to furnish those from scratch. The rental arbitrage, most of them were surprisingly furnished. Two in Chandler and Gilbert, Goodyear. That was three that we found fully furnished.
Big houses, like
So the
4
big
or 5
houses were
bedrooms.
furnished.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a little touch.
Minimal.
Couple of minor
art
you're right.
Minimal stuff.
So the rest of them
major
will all
stuff,
furnish?
TVs, beds, couches, just ready to go.
But let's say, for example, you come across a great house or let's say an apartment and awesome location, checks most, if not all of the boxes, right?
Right.
But it's not furnished. Like, how much does it cost to
Yeah.
furnish your place? Like, let's say it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot house.
I picked up a 2-bedroom apartment, not furnished, right? I furnished that one between $6,000 and $7,000, which is not bad for a little 2-bedroom.
For a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yes, yeah, from scratch.
That's it? $6,000 to $7,000?
$7,000. Yeah, 2 beds, a couch.
You
TVs.
used or brand new
I
stuff?
buy everything new.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you buy it?
Just the popular stuff like Amazon, Walmart, Wayfair. Just
So the
online.
furniture comes from Amazon and Wayfair.
Wayfair mainly.
Okay,
Walmart.
Walmart. So fully furnished, dishes, TV, everything for about $7,000.
For a 2-bedroom, yes.
2-bedroom.
Now for a 4-bedroom.
2-bedroom apartment, yeah. I can give you data for a recent 3-bedroom house that I did. It was about standard 3-bed, 2-bath. It was about 1,700 square foot house. That one was completely empty. So from scratch until that house was ready to go, like you said, mats, furniture, plates, kitchenware, bathroom, everything costed me roughly 14,000 plus or minus one. So right around the $14,000 mark, and that was to include everything: pool tables, beds, mattresses, TVs, and also keep in mind, after furnishing multiple homes, you kind of know where to shop for things.
So I'm assuming you have like a checklist and you have like all of the links that are already there that you can go in and you can just order things from Wayfair and Amazon and
Correct.
and
We
Walmart
have
and all
the
of that,
product.
yeah.
We've tried enough things to where we know what we
Yeah.
like, what we don't like, what's good, what's not. So, and that only just comes with reps, So we've done it a couple times. We've bought terrible things we know not to buy again. We've bought things that were overpriced and too expensive that we learned that we can find alternatives elsewhere. So that's why our budget is fairly efficient. I don't think 15,000 is a lot to furnish a house that big.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you could do it for
I mean,
less. You could do
I
it
spent
for
more
less.
than that on my Airbnb.
Furnishing,
I don't know how you
yeah.
able to get it for $14,000-$15,000.
That's actually pretty good.
That's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
man.
3-bedroom house.
So-
Oh yeah.
I say on average for a 3-4 bedroom about 20,000. If you buy everything new,
Right.
but if you buy used and you're shopping, you're going around. You could.
Yeah, I didn't buy anything really used for my house. Last one, I ordered everything almost 100% from Amazon.
No way.
Absolutely everything arrived to my doorstep from Amazon. Within
And how long did it take you to, from the time like you started ordering to the time to actually like launching it live, going live, like 30 days, 45 days, 60 days?
Again, that's another thing that improved over time. The first one, I was kind of taking my time because I was learning, I was asking questions, I was shopping for things. But fast forward, 3-4 more, my last one, from the day I received the property, like day one after I signed the lease and got it for my last arbitrage, until the day the house was furnished and we cleaned and we're taking pictures, that was just under 4 weeks.
Just under 4 weeks.
So order the stuff, have it delivered,
So-
assemble
That's quick.
it.
So
That's fast.
so
Yeah.
about a month.
A month.
Yes,
Right.
But that's not standard.
That's not standard, right? So, and how much do you pay per month to the landlord?
Well, that specific home, a 3-bed, 2-bath, it's a $2,200.
$2,200, and then you spend about $15,000 on the furniture.
Correct.
Furnishing it.
Which can be put. What I did is, this is also something that's very common. You can open, a business
Well,
account,
you can,
get a line
you
of
can charge
credit.
it on a credit card and then pay,
Correct.
30 days later, 45 days later.
Well, up to 12 months credit card, you
Because-
can get zero
Zero
APR
interest,
for
APR.
12 months.
I love it.
So yes, if your numbers are tight and you know what this property could produce for you, which, like for me, my last arbitrage, I got it next to the house, literally right next door to the house that I own.
Yeah.
My neighbor just happened to, want to
Yeah,
rent his
yeah,
house.
yeah,
I
yeah.
talked with him. I ended up getting houses that literally share.
So $2,200 a month.
Yes,
The utilities, how much are the utilities?
around 400.
400?
Everything.
Altogether 400?
Yeah,
Including electricity?
It's not a big house.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 2,600?
Give or take, 26,
Give or take?
27. Yeah.
And if you don't mind sharing it, what are you generating revenue?
So this is a new one. The very first month it grossed about 3,800.
All right.
The very first month, which is still new, still not, it's probably gonna be the best month, and we're also in the low season. if I remember correctly, it was somewhere between 35 or 3,700, something like that.
Okay. All right. And you're expecting to do on average about what, 4,000, 5,000?
I would say I'm hoping, yeah, for 4 plus, I think it can support probably 45 or even 5,000.
So about $2,000 a month cash flow.
Correct.
Okay.
Potentially.
Right. So you spent about 15K, right? So you got to obviously pay that off.
Correct.
Right, first. So, I mean, you're profitable probably after month number, what?
Give or take probably the first
5?
probably a little bit, maybe 6. I would say 6 to
Month
8.
number 6.
6 to 8,
7,
depending on
yeah,
the fluctuation,
yeah,
because me making like the first month 500-600, the month after I might make, a few hundred or break even. Then the month after that I could make 2,000-3,000. It's just really Airbnb.
So it makes sense for you to probably sign an 18-month or 24-month lease.
Correct, which I was luckily able to do with that one. I signed a 2-year lease at 24 months. So I'm giving myself the first 8 months to kind of like pay off all my expenses, get all that sorted out, and that gives me another year and 4 months to have everything paid off. It just way more net income than
You're going to be netting at about $24,000.
Somewhere between 12 to 20. I would say 12 to 20 to be conservative. Yeah.
How much time then you guys are spending? And we can talk about the property management piece of it, obviously. But you guys are doing property management right now yourselves.
Correct.
Right. So like for that particular property, how much time spent right now with managing 12 Airbnbs?
I wanted to set up Airbnbs as automated as possible, right? I didn't want to be dealing, me personally, I didn't want to show up to the house, hand the key to every guest, show them around, walk them around, which you could do. So luckily I was able to put systems in place to kind of just take all the little tasks away, all the little messaging questions. But it could be a business where once you're set and you have 2-3 Airbnbs, you could just be cruising. You handle your check-in, check-outs. If you have a cleaning team, you're not doing your own cleaning. It could be very passive. Or you could be in it every day, cleaning each property, messaging, meeting every guest, going from house to house, every check-in, check-out. So it just depends how you want to run it. For me, I don't want to be doing all that. But I would say, like yesterday, I had a crazy, you had a crazy day where my AC broke on the property I own in Peoria. So I had a checkout. I show up at 11. The house is hot. Now I'm dealing with calling the AC guy, trying to go up there, check the AC. Then I have a same day check-in. So I'm messaging Airbnb, letting those current guests know what's going on. Then I have the cleaning team cleaning the house. And then, hey, it's hot in here. I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out. On top of that, I had to go meet the cleaners or meet the owner. I have days where it's just a whole day. You're just back and forth. But then...
So you're doing all of this?
I was yesterday.
Yeah.
So things happen sooner and later, things break, and you have to be there, right? I spent the whole day dealing with that stuff yesterday, even this morning. But when everything's running fine, I mean, I'll go in there, check my systems, pricing, messaging, check in, check out, a couple hours a week. I mean...
But just to clarify, things never just go fine.
Yeah.
Because if things are going fine with something, then it's going to be next property or the next property. And it depends on the size of your portfolio. And
this is kind of hard to answer that question.
Yeah, when you get to the point where you have, because there are days, like I've had weeks, Ken can probably say the same. We get sometimes, depending on the length of the booking, sometimes I look at my calendar and I have 3 or 4 longer term bookings, like 7 days, 10 days, 20 days. And there's zero work.
That gives you a breather, right?
Zero work to done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then comes the week after that, they all check in or check out at the same time, and people you have like 6 people checking in the same day. So now you're coordinating with like multiple cleaning crews, sending people instructions, like people getting lost, people asking silly questions. Like you're just dealing with like a ton of stuff. So it's like up and down. It's a roller coaster.
It is. So would you say this is like a full-time gig or like a part-time gig? Is that kind of
you could definitely do it
a side gig? I mean,
it depends on the size of the portfolio, right? So like Ken was saying, if you're like, let's say you have a job, you decide to get into Airbnb or rental, and then you get 1 or 2 properties, it's very doable and manageable to do that. But now if you want to grow that portfolio, you get a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th property. It's going to get to the point where you almost need to be available the whole day.
24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, technically you're doing it on the side right now.
I mean, you're both in a real estate sales as well. You're full-time real estate sales,
Correct.
right, Ken?
Yeah, no, but
well,
up until this year, I was doing that.
I'm giving Ken a hard time because Ken was one of our top producing agents, and then he decided to make a lot of money in Airbnb business, and the real estate sales kind of like a side hustle right now for Ken. But Noor is a full-time real estate agent, right? And Noor, you got your license in the beginning of this year.
Correct. Yeah, I got it at the very end of last year and started
right.
production.
So how things going?
So far, so good. Yeah, we closed 10 transactions so far, and we have a few more pending. So it's been a good
So
year.
in the last 6 months, you closed 10 transactions
Correct.
as a brand new agent.
Correct.
Which is a lot. Because my first year I did one.
Well, you're also part-time.
But it's a lot for any new agent with no experience.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about the real estate side of
Yes.
things, right? So you're a real estate agent, right? What kind of motivated you to get into the real estate sales?
Honestly, my own properties. Like the fact that at this point when I got into real estate, I already had about 4 or 5 doors. Like I had rental properties, houses. I was into rental market. So just learning, being in that market, I had realtors, I had property managers, I was working with loan officers. I was already, having those conversations, already developing those relationships. So, and I like meeting people, I like helping people, and I saw what real estate was doing to me. It was changing my life. Net worth was increasing, my income was increasing, I was meeting new people. I was like, it was just, everything was going in a direction that I liked, and I just wanted to help others do that. I wanted to be that one realtor or that one agent that really was not knowledgeable and educated in the investment market. Because let's be real, there are a lot of agents that, they're great agents, they're great salesmen, but they don't have that kind of experience. And it's fine, right? They just haven't gone to that point where they have rental properties or have dealt with those things firsthand, long-term, short-term, out-of-state investments. And like I said, not everybody has that kind of experience. And me having that background, I just figured I could really help people as a realtor.
Dude, that's incredible though. Like I remember my first 6 months in real estate, I made $0 in commission. Like I was struggling, man. First and foremost, I picked up probably the most difficult lead source, which was expired listings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was getting like knocked down left and right. I remember going to these listing appointments and they're like laughing at me because I'm a brand new agent. And they're like, look, I had my house on the market with an agent that was in the business for 10 years and he couldn't sell it. You're going to sell it, you've been in business for 2 months. So it was tough. So my first commission check was not until month number 6. And it was a $100,000 listing and it was like $2,500 commission check. The fact that you, in the first 6 months, closed 10 transactions, now in this, which is not an easy market. I mean, there are agents that are struggling like in the last year and a half, right?
Let's clarify. It took me like still 3-4 months to kind of warm up into the market.
But still, 10 transactions
Yes,
and you
yes.
have 2 pendings. I mean,
Correct.
how are you doing it? Like, you got to have some sort of a secret, right? There's got to be something there, man. I don't know, Ken. I mean,
Honestly, just leveraging my network. Like I was telling you earlier, I lived here for a little while, and I had like a good circle. Like, I feel like that helps a ton with real estate too. And then I feel like, again, being in real estate, having own property, I've had a lot of people reach out to me over those years because they see where things were going for me. They needed sometimes guidance or they had questions. And I feel like slowly people around me or my circle kind of started, in a sense, like trusting me with maybe real estate related stuff. I'm trying to find a way to kind of explain this like in a way where I don't sound like,
well, they probably have seen the pattern.
Correct.
Of you ascending and growing,
Correct.
right, in real estate world.
Correct.
Right, and they're like, okay, this guy knows his stuff. I mean, he owns properties.
Right. I was on a
he
path that
manages
people were curious
all of
about.
that stuff.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
So
for
that
them,
generates curiosity.
almost kind of like a natural transition, if you will.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it.
So that generates curiosity. That generates trust in a sense. People are like, okay, if you're doing something right, so you must know something that I should probably know or I do want to know. So people reach out. People will ask questions, and like I said, it's always been my passion to kind of help people because I started learning that creating wealth obviously is not by working a job, right? So, and diving deeper into that, over 70-80% of people that have true wealth, they, large portion of that comes from owning real estate over years. It's a long-term game. So just knowing that fact alone made it like too obvious for me to not, get into real estate. I have to be doing this. And I would love to be helping people to get to that point as well by starting to buy their first home and then their second, their third, their fourth. This is something I'm personally passionate about for my own self and something I would love to see for everybody to do.
Yeah, dude. Like I tell to agents all the time, real estate sales is like a vehicle, a beautiful vehicle.
Yeah.
That can get you to a place where you can experience like amazing things, build long-lasting relationships, opportunities, and then of course, like you said, investing in income-producing assets, whether it's real estate or businesses, right? Partnerships, whatever that is, right?
Yeah. The obvious part is the commitment to anything I get into. So of course, even though you guys know very well, it doesn't matter who you know or it doesn't matter how large your network
Correct.
is. If you don't put in the hours and the work and contact people and help people out and just reach out to kind of like reestablish those relationships, the network and all that, just at the end of the day, still sales. So me be having the discipline to kind of like keep up with that was huge. And I feel like this is also something that helped me, I think, approach it in a more fun way, is the fact that I had other businesses and I had other stuff going where I didn't need to be in real estate. Like I already had income.
Right.
You know,
you're making over $200,000 a year from your rental property.
Correct. I had my rental properties.
Correct, yeah.
You know, I run a personal training business. That's
right. That's another
completely,
thing. Yes.
completely separate.
Yeah.
You know, so there were different income streams and different things that I was doing to where I truly just didn't need the real estate income, but I wanted to get into real estate because the value I thought I could provide to others.
So how can you do all that at the same time? Like, man, having obviously 5 short-term rentals, 5 long-term rentals, a real estate sales career where the last 6 months and last 4 or 5 months you closed 10 transactions, 2 pending. And then, of course, you mentioned about your personal training business on top of that.
Correct.
I mean, that's just like, there's just too many things, right? Like, how do you focus? I mean, how do you stay disciplined and committed and continuing to grow, essentially your empire?
So a few things: systems, processes, leverage, and people, right? So out of those things, growing any of those aspects, like any of those businesses or things, when I started into them, they needed my full time and attention until I got good enough at everything that I was doing to where I could learn how to, like Ken was saying about Airbnbs, automate things or use system and processes to kind of leverage, my time. And of course, bottom line, time management has to be key. But for example, my personal training, that alone was taking up all my time when I started a couple of years ago until I figured out ways to automate a lot of stuff, kind of still without sacrificing the quality of my business or what I'm doing, because I typically keep somewhere around 15 to 20 clients that I'm coaching at any point of time, and I try to keep them accountable, create workout plans, create meal. So this is actually a pretty complicated business on its own that I have been running consistently. And then besides that, the units, like the long and short-term rentals, luckily I have great property managers in Kansas City, Utah, and here that I don't touch my long-term rentals. So my property managers do that. They do a fantastic job. And then the short-term, I have been handling that myself for the time being until we do launch, our short-term rental
property management company.
Yeah, the property.
What's the name of the company?
Best Stays VNB.
Best Stays BNB,
which will be launching. And again, to touch on that a little bit, we'll get to that in a second, but it's just leveraging people and leveraging systems to be able to kind of take as much as I can off my plate and kind of focus on whatever I need to focus on for the time being. And then I just still be present for everything else, but kind of like got to focus my time. I've been learning to just try and focus my time at 1 or maybe 2 things at a time, because it's something I've personally been guilty of, kind of spreading myself thin and kind of doing too much at once, which can be counterproductive bias. But back to that short-term rental, this is kind of one thing that has started, just like Ken, it was starting to come over. I already started to feel that it's consuming more time than I would like it to. And that's kind of what gave Ken and I the idea, and yourself as well, like the 3 of us, like we were kind of in the same place when we got a taste of what it's like running short-term.
We don't want to be in the weeds, man. I mean, we are the biggest bottlenecks, right? Like, to do what we're doing every day, managing these properties. I mean, in my case, I only have 2. I mean, You got 12, you got 5, right? So like, obviously you guys putting in more time, more energy. But still, even with 2, man, there are days when I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I exactly that? Like, why are they texting me like at 10 o'clock at night, complaining about X, Y, and Z, right? Like, they could have easily waited the next day, right? You're essentially almost going to be becoming like a hotel, right? I was like, that's not what I want to do. Like, absolutely not. The money is good. I mean, in the last 12 months, I think we did like over $100,000, but it's like, I mean, I just don't want to be in the weeds, right? And like you say, man, you grow the business, you scale the business through people, through systems, through capital, right? Like all of those things, or all those levers are very, very important. And when you try to do everything yourself, you're not going to be able to grow. Or you're going to get bogged down, you're going to be, burning candle on both ends, and at the end of the day, you most likely will hate it, and you're going to give up. So that's why I think the genesis of property management company came about. It's like, hey, we can be where we're at right now. You're doing 12, you're doing 5, I'm doing 10. Or 2, and I'm like, we're hating it essentially, because there are going to be good days, and there are going to be also not so good days like yesterday. Or do we go to like 100 to 200?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, I don't love it. We don't hate it, but we think we have our time is better invested in growing the portfolio.
Correct.
Because Ken, for example, he is at 10 now. Now he doesn't have time to go online and find his next deal, or to kind of talk to people or go on appointments
That's
to
it.
find his
Yeah.
his 13th and 14th. Luckily, you by the time you get to a point, you start getting natural leads and stuff, and business falling into your life in a sense. But again, he doesn't. I know he would like to be out there getting, 3, 4, 5 more Airbnbs, but he can't because he's running around doing all these things. And same for me, like I find myself having less time because I'm delivering toilet paper to the house, dropping supplies off.
But it was also another, I post a lot on social media. So just like you were seeing people follow you, they're seeing your path in real estate, right? So as I was doing Airbnbs, I had just random people that were just following me. Hey, I have this house, I want to do Airbnb. They just keep reaching out. Hey, can you show me this? Asking questions. Then naturally, I don't have all that time to just go teach, for free and stuff like that, and help everyone for free. That's another reason why we kind of went towards trying to do property management for short-term rentals, just because they're like, hey, I have a house. Can you take it over? Can you help me? It's not
We can help
producing
out.
income.
Absolutely.
Like, easy. Like, we'll help you. And we'll manage it for you.
So I don't know if you guys read this, but a couple of days ago, I read that the Airbnb market in Phoenix in the last 12 months is down by as much as like 50%.
Yep.
Right? So everybody's freaking out. So I guess my question is, you cannot control that aspect, right? I mean, things are going to happen. I don't know if it's 50%, I don't know, it's 40%, I don't know, who knows? We just never know.
Right.
I know it was kind of a little bit kind of like funky because of the Super Bowl situation. I think that can be one of the reasons, right? There's a saturation, too many properties, like you said, I think, Noor, right? But what do you guys are doing to like really stand out? What do you guys are doing to differentiate yourselves from the masses, from thousands of other Airbnbs that are out there right now? I know you guys are pretty good at it. I know you got some cool things, cool ideas that you implemented in your Airbnbs. How do you, again, position yourself in a way where you can still attract the guests to book with you guys?
Some of them are pretty simple, right? And then there's things we're doing on the back end to help our expenses and bottom line. But I mean, for me, the most important thing is just having good quality pictures. Believe it or not,
It's a huge one.
So quality pictures is very important,
professional,
right?
not just professional.
So professional. So you hire a professional
Professional,
photographer that comes in and takes
Perfect.
top-notch
Yeah,
pictures.
correct.
Okay, so that's one. All right.
On top of that, staging, just making your property stand out, pop online compared to what's in your area, So for me, just having a lot of color, a lot of pop in your pictures, and then the third one would be just having as many amenities as you can that Airbnb allows. They have a whole amenities section that you could check off.
Yeah.
Fireplace, pool table, corner, whatever it may be.
So let's go back to staging. Is that something that you do? Do you hire somebody to stage it for you? I mean, honestly,
You can
that's
hire
not my
someone.
strength.
Yeah, same.
So who's doing that?
So far, I've been doing, we do our own.
So do you get ideas from some other places?
Yeah, like TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, just whatever's trending that you see that other cool hosts are doing.
Or just go on an Airbnb and just shop. Like just looking. If you look at 10 different listings, you'll get like
Pretty
a lot
good
of
ideas,
ideas.
right?
Yeah. You
You're
gotta
doing this. You're doing
You gotta
that.
put your own little like taste and twist into it too, or you can go hire somebody. It's common that also people go and hire somebody to kind of furnish their home for them. It will cost you a little bit more, but maybe worth
Pay
it.
off.
If you're somebody that doesn't have the time or want to, delegate that, then yeah, that works. But to add on to what Kenneth says too, you're asking what we're doing to kind of combat that, and I think with times like that where it's slowing down, especially being slow season and being oversaturated with the market, what we have to do is just kind of dive deeper into the basics, right? Like Ken, he's the best at like manipulating the prices, messing with the softwares. That's his beast. That's what he's really, really good at, and he's taught me a lot, and he taught all of us a lot about that. And I think it gets down to mastering that. Like when there's like a bajillion listing you're competing with, your prices have to be competitive. You have to offer discounts. You have to be on top of your calendar and what's happening. That's what's going to distinguish anybody. And that's the reason we have still been able to do well. Yes, we've noticed a decrease, in potential revenue, but we're still profitable. And at the end of the day, that's what we care about, right? But dialing down to these little things, making sure you have really good pictures that stand out, making sure your listing is getting good reviews through good management and through good communication with the guest, being a good host, having a good property manager. And most importantly, I think, is just messing with the software to make sure you're getting booked.
So when you say messing with it, so you're talking about the dynamic pricing, right?
Correct.
Not something where it's just one price for the next 30 days. Like there's a software out there, there's a platform out there, right? That we all use, right? Do you wanna share exactly what that is?
Yeah, we use Price Labs, but there's many. That's just one of hundreds.
So Price Labs is the one that
we just happen to use.
We just happen to use, right?
But the point is having dynamic pricing that changes every day according to the weekday, weekends, and supply and demand. The Super Bowl's here. You don't want to leave money on the table. You want to increase your prices. Or the software could also account for, hey, you're more booked than your competition. You're at 100% in the next 50 days, and they're at 24%. That means you're too cheap. So now you could adjust your increase your upcoming days. So it's not just about being the cheapest, because it's about just squeezing out and maximizing your return on every day, every holiday, and all that.
So that's really one of your superpowers.
Yeah, that's what I focus on.
That's what you really
I
focus
think at the end of the day.
So if I decide to sign up with you and you manage my property, that's something that you're really going to help me with.
Right, the pricing. At the end of the day, I think no matter what you do with your house, you probably if you don't have the right pricing, just like in real estate, if you overprice something, you're not gonna get the results you want. So at the end of the day, it comes down to pricing, but not just being the cheapest, right? Just controlling how people book, how long they book, and at the right price.
So you can still maximize your returns.
Right. So going back, so what's important you said is obviously making sure that the pricing is dynamic, right? It fluctuates, right?
And
Competitive, right? Obviously the amenities, the features inside of the house, right? The way it looks. Anything else you guys think?
Bottom line, the pictures was the first thing.
The pictures
look like crap. Guests are not going to even click the listing to entertain it.
So, it's amazing to see still like more than half of the Airbnbs.
Phone pictures?
Yeah. Oh man, it's just it's like man. I mean, it's the same thing with the listings. I mean, you look at some of the listings in MLS, and you're like,
I'm not complaining. I want as many people. I want all of them to be phone pictures. No, honestly,
it's less competition.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And that's that your initial setup quality and picture is gonna dictate what you're gonna price it. So I picked up couple listings or Airbnbs over the last few weeks, and they weren't doing good, and they had really shitty pictures. And if I can't get those people to update the pictures with better pictures, I can't increase their prices. Because the only way they're gonna book is online.
So as simple as just spending like $200 on
180, 150.
$180 on the photographer.
And the crazy part is some of these listings and houses, they're amazing homes and houses, but they just look like crap, honestly, with these terrible pictures. But yeah, so that's as far as our existing homes. Moving forward, what's happening in the market is not going to slow us. It's definitely not slowing us down from getting any more Airbnbs. But we just have to run those numbers like tighter than ever. We have to, run our comps just like we do, because we acquired the ones that we did through a process, right? We didn't just get them or, we wanted to make sure before we got any of those properties that they would be profitable and they would at least like break even in the worst month. Yeah. And then some sort of exit strategy is always a must to kind of like protect ourselves from it.
No matter what the market does, like right now it's down, then all we have to do is just adjust, change our numbers, be more strict with the leasing terms.
It's not really a survival of the fittest. It's someone who actually adapts, right? I mean, the best to the environment, right? And the thing is, we can't control the interest rates. We cannot control the recession. We cannot control all the crap that is going on out there. What we can control is us. And in our situation, obviously, quality of service, the product that we're putting out there, right? And then ultimately the pricing, right? That's very important. So with everything that is going on right now, a lot of agents out there are dealing with adversity. And I'm sure you guys in your lives, in your young lives, I think both of you are what, 28, 29?
27.
He's 27, you're 28. Man, I feel old. I'm sure you guys went through some sort of adversity in your lives. So how did you guys were able to overcome that adversity? Give me one scenario or one situation where you had to overcome Ken, and then the same thing with you, Noor.
Well, it's a hard one. I think the military definitely, taught me a lot. I can't think of it.
So with military, were you the one who's stationed in North Dakota or South Dakota?
No, that was Gus.
Oh, that was Gus.
I was here with
Now, he had to go through adversity. He was stationed, was it North Dakota or South Dakota?
North Dakota.
Oh, my God. Okay, but you were fine, though. Or you stationed? You were here. You're looking Air Force Base. Wearing a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
In 115-degree weather. Yeah. Probably that was the biggest adversity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of the things that happen to me, I feel like it's just pretty common and standard, but then when you talk to other people, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
That's
No,
they'll never
but
experience
you
that,
may
you know?
think that, but I feel like everybody, we all experience different things and handle them, differently. And yeah, like you said, sometimes you think you've had whatever kind of life until you speak to somebody else and you realize that you've had it pretty easy, and sometimes the other way around. But I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. It came in phases, right? So for me, moving to the States was like the biggest challenge of my life. Like I was telling you earlier, one of them because I came to a country that I wasn't really prepared to come into. Like I just came here to visit my father and my mother, and my family were and are still in Egypt, and I just came here over the summer to visit my dad, and then I ended up just never going back home. Didn't prepare for that. I didn't even like leave my school or pull my paperwork out to kind of transfer. This was truly meant to be a vacation. This is how I came. I was born a U.S. citizen because my father was, but my story wasn't meant to go, that way. I just came to, like I said, visit family, and then I never went back home, and I ended up just having to restart my whole life, make new friends. I didn't have family. I didn't have anything. I couldn't speak the language, like I was saying. There was a huge
And you were what,
culture
17
shock.
years old?
16 going into
16
17.
years old. You didn't speak any English.
Right.
No family.
No family.
During that age, I mean, it's tough.
And I
It's
was,
really
I
good.
was young. I
Yeah.
was like pulled away from all my family, friends, everything I knew. Yeah, I was put into a brand new environment that was completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand people in school. People would come approach me. I spoke very little English, enough to like introduce myself, say hi.
Dude, I can,
come from-
I
come
can
from
so much
Egypt.
relate to that.
Yeah,
I was 13 years old when we moved here, right? And it was the same thing, like going to school and not speaking any English and wearing all the clothes from Russia. And I remember like man, it was so tough. Like one day I remember somebody put a deodorant stick on my desk in school. That was bad, and I remember coming home and crying, because again, like you look different, you act different, you don't speak any English, right? You don't have any money. We had like $550 in our pockets, the entire family of five. That's all they let us to bring with us, right? I'm talking about the former Soviet Union, right? We adapted, and we,
have to.
whatever like doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and we had to deal with it, and I think that's probably one of the reasons where we had right now in our lives is like we had to go through all of that adversity.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even before that, like still came from very humble beginnings. Like didn't have very much growing up. I started working when I was 14 years old, and when I started being really independent, kind of providing for myself and helping my mother and my family and stuff. But yeah, like going through these things, it's really makes you grow up a little bit sooner than you had anticipated.
Well, I mean, I think pressure can definitely help you to push through, or to really kind of like make you like retrieve, right? So like in your situation, in your situation, like you guys just push through.
I guess piggyback off that, when we moved to Mexico, it was like a permanent change for us. Like we weren't gonna come back to the United States. My mom left my dad, and we were, I was out there going to school. But it was the opposite for me. I went from English to Spanish, which I speak Spanish, but I never went to school and started reading and writing Spanish.
Right.
So after 3 years, I learned how to read, write, and then we pretty much begged my mom that we want to go back to the United States. And for a while, every year, she's like, no,
you miss your PS2?
Yeah, I miss my dad. I miss my dad. No, it's so different. Like I would walk to school as a little kid. My mom was working, single mom, just worked just to provide for us. Finally we decided to come back, and now I come back to the United States, and now I have to take special classes because now I'm mixing Spanish and English, writing in Spanglish. I'm 10 years old. I'm 8, 9, 10 years old. I come back, and when I come back, I'm living in Compton, California. There's bullet holes in the windows. And
no shit,
people
really?
selling corner. Yeah,
that's where you live?
Yeah, in Compton.
Wow.
That's where I broke my first leg. I got hit by a car. I was driving my bike.
Oh wow.
I broke my first ankle out there. But yeah, I mean, for me, I was just a kid in Mexico and had no clue that I would end up, coming back to the United States. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
I love it. Awesome. Well, listen, what's next for you fellas? What's the next endeavor? What's the next business? Or I don't want to call it a side hustle, because side hustle is like so overused and overplayed. A true business that you want to build and grow.
I think at least our next step is starting that short-term rental property management.
What's the name of it again?
bestdaysbnb.com.
That's right.
So be on the lookout for that. Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
be coming up very soon. Combined effort between myself, Ken, and Alan. We
Yeah.
have decided, to put our expertise or knowledge in the short-term rental market, something that we're proud to produce and put out there to help people, have better experiences. We obviously, being active on Airbnb, we come across a lot of like situations, a lot of profiles, a lot of guests where we see properties managed very poorly, where we see things not done right or how they could be done, is pretty much our goal to kind of prioritize quality of service and guests having the best experience and all that at Airbnbs, and to run our business efficiently. We know what the main things that a lot of hosts struggle with, and we say that because we've experienced it ourselves, and we have tried and we continue to try to kind of improve those processes and systems, and this is what we are looking forward to do, implementing those things into our new company to kind of stand out and hopefully be able to produce something worthy of everybody's service.
Awesome. We're going to be the best of the best.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, guys. So if someone wants to connect with you, reach out to you, get more information about what you guys are offering, what you're doing, whether it's on a real estate sales, what of your very successful real estate agents, personal training, and then, of course, the property management piece of it, how do they can reach out to you or connect with you, where they can reach you?
For me, the easiest way is always Instagram. It's Realtor.
Phoenix Realtor?
The
Phoenix Realtor on Instagram. Okay.
And then my profile's public. I post behind the scenes, when we're setting up properties, when we're looking at properties. So I post a lot of information on there for people to see. So you can just reach out on Instagram.
Same thing on my Instagram is Noor. That's my handle. And yeah, you can reach out to me anytime, any place. I'm happy to help with anything.
Right on. Awesome, guys. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your journeys, your adversities, and everything that you've been doing in such a short period of time. So
absolutely, and thanks for having us, man.
Absolutely, man, and looking forward to seeing you guys grow and scale and building your empires.
Absolutely.
All right, fellas. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.